Joshua Hayward, founder of Breath of Life School in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and thanks for joining me for Life Readings this week in the Stars and Cards. So if you're the kind of person who's seeking info and guidance on how to move out into the circumstances and events of your life, how to deal with people and go towards your goals, really crush it, that's fantastic. But if you're also the type of person who is seeking spiritual meaning, is looking to build a strong core in wisdom and understanding and be blessed by both of them, well, then you've come to the right place, because we're going to stir up an admixture of both the inner wisdom and the outer wisdom for you each week here at Stars and Cards. And, well, let's just get to it. Well, just for the sake of continuity, whether you've been watching these episodes of Breath of Life readings or not, just consider, and if this is your first time, welcome. And consider last week, and maybe even the last 2 or 3 weeks, and the changes that you may have gone through. And consider that there's some profound influences that have been happening. And okay, so then we'll start moving into this week beginning Sunday the 27th of June. Okay, and we did mention in past weeks the configuration that's in place. And it's a sort of a long-term thing, but it's beginning to move apart now. We're just sort of seeing the most intense part of it, and that is Saturn in the sign of Aquarius on a 90-degree angle or a square angle to Uranus in the sign of Taurus. And this is sort of a battle of the old and new that's going on, and it's a structural thing, and we're supposed to be trying to find what we really value, and we're confronted with the reality that what we have valued may no longer really be that significant. It may be kind of like a trap for us now. So, and I mean this individually in as much as anything else, maybe more so, but collectively as well. And so then wanting to build a structure, a new structure that's going to contain more freedom to be who we are and to move in the world from a different perspective, maybe from that perspective of Christ consciousness, more of a spiritual awareness beginning in the heart from inside out. Maybe we're making those kind of changes. And if you are, that's fantastic. And it's something to, if you aren't really clear about that, it's something to consider. Okay, so we've got that going on. We're wanting a new structure. And so we begin on Sunday the 27th, and the moon goes into, or it's in Aquarius, and it begins to conjunct Saturn. And it's on a square angle, just briefly, for a few hours. And it's on a square to Uranus. So it gives you that emotional capacity to really look at it, though, with a detached type of demeanor. And so you can be really free to open your heart and say, okay, I've seen some things happen. I'm beginning to get where my life's really going. And maybe it was bigger than what my ego mind might have thought, and maybe there are other things going on. Okay, so that happens with the moon, and the moon, that lunation is a sort of a brief thing where the moon conjuncts something and just kind of lights it up. Okay, so consider that. And then at the same time, that moon's going to move away, but we have the planet Mars moving into or it's already in the sign of Leo, and it's beginning to form a T-square to those two other planets. Don't get dismayed by this technical jargon here. Just listen to how I'm explaining how it works. Don't, just kind of hold your center here and see that, okay, like if you've got Saturn here and you've got Uranus here, up here forming a T, right, going like this, is Mars moving into place. So not only do we have a lunation, but we got a longer lasting kind of a Marsation, if you will, of what's going on here. And that brings in the male frequency, the heart and the male energy, that earnest energy that wants to act from the space of truth. Just by the way, though, you know, just for a second to look at the big picture, which is not really going to be my focus, but you can't really, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, that Saturn is conjuncting for many months the south node of the United States chart. In other words, we're clearing up some past karma. Uranus is squaring the nodal axis and saying there's some changes here that have to be based on, not only finances, Taurus, but what's important to us and what we value. And then how do we act on that? Mars coming into this briefly for a few days and perhaps the whole week here for consideration of how do we act. And Mars conjuncted the north node of the United States chart just a few days ago. So we're really looking at, as a nation, some karma that we're trying to solve right now. And we're trying to get a new type of male solution to the whole thing. But let's just let those people play out whatever. Let's be the change that we want to see in the world by working with this in our own lives. And so instead of trying to give the hierarchy or the structure of life what it wants through goal orientation and doing the right thing and focusing so much on achieving those goals and either being rewarded or being possibly being reprimanded from external authority. And this has really got to do with personal authority, knowing that from our own heart space, from that Christ consciousness, we can act from that place in our own interests. Lovingly, and it might disturb other people because the alliances that we have may be changing a little bit. People want us to do what they want us to do. If we move without guilt and without, that crunch of the hierarchy, we're going to benefit from that because that's how we can really be the change. And so we're acting in our own enlightened self-interest and not in a selfish way. Not in breaking that polarity of selfish and selfless and moving into what I call self-full. In other words, let's fill up our own cups. Let's do what we can without harming others and to generate some love through those actions that does actually help other people, even though they might not think it. Okay, so that's where I'm going with this whole week. It's about acting from the heart and beginning to make changes. When you really look at this cluster F of Uranus and Saturn and Mars here, it really is intense. If you're looking at Mars opposite Saturn, it's got to do with authority. So whose authority is it, And Mars square Uranus, those transits there are possibly fraught with, possibility of accidents and things like that, and all kinds of change. So there's some reactionary stuff. It may not happen so much within you, but my prediction for this week is that there'll be some outrage and things like that. Okay, yeah, it's happening kind of every week, but But that's the structure that we're trying to break out of in society right now. So once again, let's do it for ourselves. And as we do that, I'm going to, surprisingly enough, pull 3 cards. And this will be going with what was just given. And the first one is really interesting because that T-square there really is about power. And this card is called Power. And this is like a power structure that builds off of its own self. And you can see this sort of looks like a foundation with these 4 discs. This is an Earth card, 4 of discs, also called the 4 of Pentacles in other tarot packs. Okay, so just getting a good look at it right here. And very foundational structural card. It's the power from acting in your own self-interest rather than from obligations and the need to achieve and to prove yourself that way. What if you got a chance to just be who you are? Okay, so that's what the real story is with this card here. And it's a very practical, functional kind of thing. It's building your own power base. And so some alliances may be breaking up, you know, and new ones forming and stuff like that. So I'm pulling another card. And yeah, well, okay, here's the Ace of Swords. And this indicates new thinking. It's a powerful, with the crown here, new direction for your thought, instigating and moving in those new directions that you've picked up some really good stuff in the last couple of weeks, especially last week. And the new way of thinking is once again based on your relationship with Christ consciousness or with spirit in your heart. Okay, and the third card. Okay, and all right. So I'm going to pull 2 cards because I took a look at this card and I wanted to try to give an explanation of that because, you know, I'm in a lighthearted mood today, you know, but here I am with this 9 of Swords, which is called Cruelty. So the new direction and the power, that power thing is really moving away from the pain, from the relationships and that you have that are painful, especially ones that are holding you out of your power. Okay, so it's really moving away from that. And let's just acknowledge and bless what's happened already. It's not a bad thing. We're living out our growth. We're learning to embrace our hearts and embrace our lives from love and not from fear. And it's not an easy thing to do. So anyway, 9 of Swords, and the card that I pulled to mitigate that is the Moon card, which does rule fears and confusion and stuff like that. But you can see that right here, the sun is, after you walk through these pillars of darkness, the sun's on the other side. And so this is like an initiation to a new level of consciousness, is how I see it. And that's what we're being challenged with, is to become the people who we really are. And the foundation is based on the heart, and the actions that we take are based upon our own frequency and our own power that we're moving to. We're raising our frequency above the density that we've been experiencing. So that's what I have for you this week. Hopefully that's helpful, and I encourage you to keep your hearts open and to be aware of the pain from the past and in the current situations, and to really be forgiving and being willing to move into your own authority and with integrity to establish your own authority in life. And through that, rather than trying to give other people what you think they need and failing and getting more and more pain, of beginning to stand in your own authority and to feel the joy of that, because you are part of God. And that's what Christ consciousness is. So I'm going to sign off there. This is Joshua Hayward, Breath of Life School in Yellow Springs, Ohio, reminding you this week, as you move through this stuff, to seek the divine and look from that perspective of divinity and see how that might work, rather than looking through the wounded pride of the ego.